All right. Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Gail, and thank you to all of you guys for joining us this morning. Whether you're watching this live right now on our Wednesday member virtual chat, or maybe you're tuning in on our YouTube channel, where you can always find all of our Wednesday morning chats on there. We've basically traveled the entire zoo talking about all the animals here, and we only have a couple left. And we have saved some of the best for last, and some of the kind of the underdogs. Rheas are definitely one of those animals that are the underdogs, and a lot of people just kind of walk by their habitat, but they're really fascinating animals. We have two Rheas here. They are sisters. It is Flora and Fauna, and I'm going to flip this around and show you who is who in just a moment. But there's actually two different subspecies of Rhea. We have the common Rhea, which is what we have here, the greater common Rhea, and they're a little bit larger, and then the Darwin's Rhea, which are a little bit smaller. Now, a lot of people, when they see them, they say, of course, that they look like an ostrich, and they do, but they are kind of distant cousins, if you will. They are related because of the family group that they're in, but they are on separate continents. So these guys are strictly in South America, where our ostriches, of course, are over in Africa. So I'm going to flip this around, our camera around, so I can show you who is who. And we also have Mara, who is our zookeeper. Mara's actually in the habitat right now. Now, the Rhea habitat is one of the areas that we do go into. So we've talked a lot about protective contact and positive reinforcement training through a barrier, but some of the animals we can go in with, and the Rhea are one of those. It is a much smaller bird than our ostrich, and they're following Mara in the back there, but don't worry, because Mara has food, and she's going to bring that food out in just a moment. Now, the Rhea also share a habitat with a crested screamer. So we've talked about crested screamers in one of our previous Wednesday virtual chats, and our crested screamer is right behind here. He's really new to the zoo. His name's Lionel, and Lionel's getting used to just the area and to our other crested screamer. So we have kind of an adjacent habitat here. You can see our fence, and then our other screamer is down in our pool way over here. Right there. So that's our other crested screamer, and they're working on intros. And we've talked about intros before with our animals, and we do intros very gradually. We also do that with birds, because birds can be particular as well. And so we want to make sure to give them a lot of time and space to be able to get acclimated to everyone. So this is Mara. Mara is one of our fabulous zookeepers that's in there, and she is giving some lettuce or some collard greens to Flora, and then there's Fauna. So how do we tell the difference? Well, Fauna has this more characteristic, iconic coloration, which is this gray, kind of tawny color that you would see as a female ostrich. This is the same coloration that you would see in the majority of our Rhea as well. Let me see if I can get my focus a little bit better here. There we go. And then Flora is our white Rhea, and she is what we would call leucistic. So leucistic is a recessive gene that can give an animal that white pigmentation or that white color. Now, it's not albinoism. Albinoism is lacking pigmentation, which they do have the same feathers, but if we look at the eyes, let me see if I can zoom in. It's trying to zoom in on too many things, and they're in a silly spot. So if you look really closely with Flora, you can see that she has blue eyes, and that's a characteristic of how we can tell the difference between leucistic and albinoism. And then, if you remember, our two jaguars that we had here, they had a black coat, and that was melanistic. So animals can have different recessive genes that give them different colorations, and that one that Flora has, again, is leucistic, or that white color. So that's how we can tell the difference between Flora and Fauna. Now, these guys are herbivores, mostly. They will eat some insects, but the majority of their diet consists of vegetation, of seeds, grasses, things like that. And so they really enjoy lettuce, collard greens. We'll even give them some fruits and vegetables that they'll eat in here. And we see a capybara trying to come into the mix here. This is one of our new cappies. This is Siren, and Siren's over.
We lost your audio, Jed.
Okay, check, check. How about now?
We can hear you.
Okay, sorry guys, our microphone, I've already gone through 2 sets of batteries. I'm not gonna go through anymore. I'm just gonna use my boom mic. So Emily, you'll have to let me know if you can't hear me. I can turn that up a little bit since I am standing behind the boom mic, but I'll try to talk a little bit louder for you guys. So as I was saying, Siren is our capybara, and she's over here just like our crested screamer, Lionel, getting used to the area before we do intros with our other capybara, Hendrix, who's on the other side. And I believe we did cappies last week or 2 weeks ago. So you can always go back and take a look at all the capybara info, because today, of course, we're talking about our amazing Rhea. Now, Rhea, just like the ostrich, are part of a family group called the ratites. The ratites are our flightless birds. So these are birds that have evolved to be on the ground. They have small wings, heavy bodies, and they have evolved to be amazing ground birds, which can run fast with those powerful legs. Rheas can't run quite as fast as the ostrich. Ostrich can run about 40 miles an hour. These guys about 30, so still pretty darn quick for a ground-dwelling bird. But that large body size makes it pretty much impossible to be able to fly. And the other thing that's unique about ratites is that they are missing what's called a keel bone. So the keel bone is a bone that's attached to the sternum of a flighted bird, and the wing muscles are attached to the keel bone. And so those wing muscles give the bird the ability to fly. So birds that lack a keel bone are not going to be able to fly. They're going to be our flightless birds. So again, we have our Rhea, we have our ostrich, and then we have our cassowary and our emu. Those are the 4 main large ratites in that family group. The cassowary and emu are from Australia. The ostrich, as we said, is from Africa, and the Rhea is from South America. So they are much smaller than both the emu, cassowary, and the ostrich. So these guys will only get to a weight of about 60 pounds, full grown, and these girls are both full grown. They are 10 years old, which 10 years is getting up there for a Rhea. In human care, we can see them get up to around 15 or so, but 10 years old is definitely an older emu. And sorry about the background noise. We do have some construction. We're close to our front plaza construction and our flamingo construction. So if you're hearing that kind of rattling noise, that's from our construction zone. So sorry if we're getting some background noise there. So as I was saying, the ratite family, and then we do have some smaller ratites that are out there. We have the tinamou, and one of the most spectacular of the ratites is the kiwi. And the kiwi, of course, is from Australia. It's a small little bird that is a true nocturnal bird. We don't have any kiwi here. We used to have some tinamou, but not anymore. And so the 2 Rhea that are in here, they've been here for quite a while. And again, they are sisters. They were born at a zoo out of Idaho, and they were hatched there. Having just 2 girls means that we don't have any baby Rhea that are here. I keep on mixing up my ostrich and Rhea. So see, I'm so accustomed to saying ostrich instead of the Rhea. Poor Rhea. But these guys will still lay eggs, just like all of our female birds will. And the Rhea will lay an egg typically about once a week. Now, I was just talking to Mara about when the last time they laid an egg, and she said it was early December. And we believe that during the winter time, they slow egg production because it's too cold to incubate those eggs. Now, Rheas will hang out in a flock, so there'll be typically a dominant male and a dominant female, and they will lay their eggs directly on the ground. And being such a large bird, they are able to protect those eggs from potential predators. And hanging out with a flock of other Rheas, that means they've got kind of power in numbers. They've gone to the back there because they think Mara's going to give them more food. So hopefully they come back up here once they realize that she's moved on to a different habitat. I think they're coming up this way. And so the Rhea's egg, I'm going to kind of move this around and try to step in front of our camera here. Hang on just a sec, because I have a Rhea egg for us. So let me see. Okay, that's pretty bright. Hold on, guys. Let me try and get you a good camera angle here where we're not looking right in the backlight of the sun. So as I said, Rheas will lay egg about once every week, and this is the size of a Rhea egg. Now, to give you a size comparison, I also have a chicken egg. So, chicken egg, Rhea egg. So you can see the size difference in the two of them. And to give you a size comparison of even something larger, I have an ostrich egg. So now we have the ostrich egg to the Rhea egg. So the ostrich, of course, is going to lay the largest egg out of any bird in the world, because the ostrich is the largest bird out of all of them in the world. So they have this really large egg, and you can see the size difference of this Rhea egg. And you can kind of see the difference in that this is more of an oval-shaped egg, and this is more of a round-shaped egg. And that's just due to the type of nest that they will build, the difference of the ostrich and the Rhea. So they will kind of gather some leaves and allow that to not roll out as much. The Rhea does build a more robust nest than the ostrich. Ostriches will just kind of lay their egg right on the ground, and it's kind of shaped so it doesn't really roll as much. So the shape of the egg is unique to the type of nest. And we see that with a lot of different birds, that their egg shape is designed for their nest. So these are actually blown out. You can see the holes in them so that we can use them for demonstration purposes, and they last a long time. So there's nothing actually in here. But again, the size difference between a Rhea egg and a chicken egg. So much smaller. So again, a very large bodied bird. Let me flip this back around so we can try to say hi to our Rhea again. I see Flora, who's over in the side here. And the Rheas are kind of cool out here because they do move around quite a bit. So it's a fairly active animal, and they're pretty social as well. As you saw, we have our crested screamer in here. We have our capybara in here. This is kind of a stayover habitat for a lot of the animals in this area that might be transitioning into another one, and the Rheas do really well. Now, we also do have our Galapagos Tortoises in here that we wanted to talk about this morning, and then our cold front came in, and it is way too cold, and they do not want to get up. So we do have a night house for them that has a heating element in there, and of course, they are going to be staying inside with this temperature. So we have Ferdinand and Isabella. Those are our two Galapagos Tortoises that are in here. Of course, the Galapagos tortoise is one of the two species of giant tortoises, the Aldabra tortoise and the Galapagos tortoise. The Galapagos tortoise, of course, is from the Galapagos Islands, a really amazing species, just like our Aldabra tortoise. They can get quite large, and they're known for how long they live. So Galapagos and Aldabra tortoises can live well up into their hundreds, even 150 years old. And so a really great species for this habitat also. Hopefully when you guys come and maybe it's a little bit warmer, you'll see Ferdinand and Isabella out here. A lot of times they're wallowing in their mud or hanging out looking for some food. But again, a really spectacular species, and a lot of times gets forgotten. So make sure if you do come to the zoo, come to the corner of our South America habitat or South America loop, and you will get an opportunity to see our Rhea. So one of the things I was hoping to show you guys, if the Rhea get a little bit closer here, is their ears. Now, birds do have ears. And of course, we're hanging right behind a mesquite branch right here. Let me see if I can bring Flora up a little closer. Flora, come here. Come here, come say hi. Come on, come here, come here. I should have had some food up here for her. And then maybe I could have got her a little bit closer. But this is a bird that, because their feathers are a little bit shorter on their head, you can see their ear holes. They don't have the external earlobes like we do. but birds do have ears and they can hear really well. So they will use that for vocalizations to, see what's going on around their habitat, around their area, and to be able to talk to each other. So Rheas and ostriches do make some noise. They make kind of a honking noise. I don't think we'll be able to hear that today, but I have heard this honking noise coming from them. So they definitely do communicate with each other. Now, as I said, these girls are both full grown, 10 years old. So they are getting up there a little bit in age, but they are doing really, really well. Now, one of the other things that's different between the Rhea and the ostrich is their feet. So let me see if I can get zoomed in on their feet. Rhea have 3 toes on their feet, where the ostrich only has 2 toes. So you can see those 3 toes right there, but so prehistoric looking. We know that our birds definitely date back to our dinosaur era, to the prehistoric era, and there's no doubt that these guys came from dinosaurs somewhere along the evolutionary chain. So now that they're sitting here, let me see if I can get a zoom in on their head here. So you might be able to see, well, you can definitely see Flora's eyes now, how blue they are. And right behind, lower to there, you can see that ear hole. There it is, right there. So it's a great bird. A lot of other birds will have feathers that will cover their ear holes, but these guys do not. Now, the other thing that you might see our Rhea or our ostrich doing is eating sand or rocks. A lot of birds will eat sand and rocks. It's very normal, and that helps them to chew up their food. These guys don't chew with their mouth, they chew with their gizzard. Their gizzard is an extraordinary organ that is their stomach, and what they'll do is they'll swallow rocks or sand, and in their gizzard, it is a strong muscle that will work to be able to chew up food inside their stomach. So we chew up food, obviously, with our teeth in our mouth, and then we swallow, digest it. The Rhea will take large chunks of food and then swallow that down into their gizzard and then chew it up inside their gizzard with, again, that granular friction that goes back and forth, and that's how they're going to digest their food. So we're getting a really good look at fauna here, hanging out, looking at us, wondering what is going on. So Emily, do we have any questions so far on our Rhea or any of the animals in here that maybe we can answer?
We sure do. So what is the average height, or what is the height for flora and fauna?
So these guys stand at about 4 feet tall. So it's hard to tell because they will kind of keep their head down, but when their head is up, they stand about 4 feet in height, which is significantly smaller than, again, our ostrich. Our male ostrich will stand at a height of 9 feet and weigh around 350 pounds. So again, a much smaller species at only about 4 feet and weighing about 60 pounds. But when you talk about birds, most birds are weighing 10 pounds or less. Most birds are only weighing a couple pounds, are flighted birds, but 60 pounds is still a really heavy bird. So it's not quite as tall, again, as our ostrich. Even that of the cassowary or the emu, those guys are much taller and heavier in weight. So they're one of the smaller of our large ratites, but still considered a large bird.
You did mention their wings, and if they can't use their wings for flight, what do they use them for?
So they will use their wings to be able to communicate, especially during breeding season. You will see the male and the female start to display and do a little bit of a dance with their wings. And then as these guys are running, they will keep their wings out for balance. They have small legs or slender legs. And as they're running, when they're turning side to side, those wings will act as rudders. So you'll often see them running with their wings out. And that's a stabilization factor that they're going to use so that they could, direct themselves and stay stable with that large body as they're running. So they definitely serve a purpose, not for flight, but again, they've evolved to be on the ground, and we have our crested screamer that's calling. Crested screamer is calling in the other habitat here. That's the noise you guys are hearing. So the wings definitely do serve a purpose for our Rhea, just not for flight.
Excellent. And then you had mentioned that until recently they were laying eggs about once a week. What do we do with the unfertilized eggs? And in South America, do people ever eat them?
Yeah, so people will eat Rhea eggs and people will eat Rhea. So Rhea in some areas are farmed just like we farm chickens, and they will farm them for their feathers, for their skin, to make different items with, and then they will also eat their eggs just like we eat chicken eggs. So they're a little bit harder to break open, but of course an omelet from a Rhea egg is a pretty big omelet because it's a pretty big egg. Here at the zoo, we pretty much just take them and we'll dispose of them because again they're unfertilized, and you know, if they stay out there too long, they will get septic and they will rot, and that's just not something we want out in the habitat. They don't actually sit on them. They don't try to incubate them. So we'll remove them, and again we will drill a hole in them and take all the material out so that we can use it for education purposes to show people the size difference of, again, a chicken egg, a Rhea egg, an ostrich egg. It's pretty extraordinary to be able to see the size of the eggs that these animals will lay. Now, the Rhea does lay a pretty large egg compared to their body size. The ostrich actually doesn't. Compared to their body size, it's a fairly small egg that they lay, but you know, again, it's the largest egg in the world. So, but yeah, we just take them. We'll either dispose of them because, you know, we don't need that many for education purposes, but we do keep some of them so that we can use them as a demo.
Perfect. Thank you, Jed. We have another question. You had been talking about the gizzard and how they might ingest sand or rocks. Does that get reflected in their feces? Would you say that that is sandy and rocky?
It can be, yeah. We definitely can see some of that sand in their feces. And when we're talking about feces of a bird, they have a very interesting digestive system in which they have what's called a cloaca. And the cloaca is what they will urinate from. And so it's both kind of urine and feces that will be removed at the same time. That cloaca is also their sexual organ. So that's what birds will use to breed and to mate with. So it is a multi-purpose organ of all birds. It's a fascinating evolution of how birds can eliminate waste, and also is their sexual organ. So oftentimes you'll hear scientists and researchers talking about a cloaca kiss, and that is, of course, the breeding of two birds. Breeding does happen fairly quickly with birds, and so that urate that happens will have both kind of urine and feces mixed together, and we will see some sand in there, but a lot of that stays within the gizzard. It's a pretty extraordinary organ that they're able to keep that material in for the usage of chewing up that food, and then be able to only eliminate waste of what they cannot use for nutrition. Fascinating animals. Maybe we'll get to see them poop here, and you can see the cloaca, because I know that's what you guys all woke up to see.
On a slightly different note, you had talked about farming and some of their uses in South America. Do they shed their feathers, and then what do people use their feathers for?
So a lot of times they will shed some of their feathers. Most of the time, those feathers are harvested from them. They will drop a few here and there, but not really enough to make it any sort of a vital source to collect. And so a lot of times people are using feathers for ornamental pieces, headdresses, and things to that nature. I know with the ostriches, they were almost hunted to extinction because of their feathers, and those feathers were used for headdresses. And with the creation of vehicles, the need for those feathers went down because as women typically are wearing the headpieces that have the ostrich feathers on them, as they were driving in the cars, the tops were down because they didn't really have tops at that time. The feathers would blow off their heads, and they didn't make suitable pieces anymore. So with the creation of the car, the demand and need for those feathers went down, which is kind of an interesting, a historical story on ostriches. I don't know if that's the same for the Rhea or not, but I do know that people will use Rhea feathers for headdresses, for different ornamental pieces. And again, they are farms like chickens are. So, they will get slaughtered, and they will use the meat, they will use the skin, and they will use the feathers as well. It is a species that's kind of least concern. So they are not an endangered species. The population is doing really well. They do have some areas in South America that they're seeing some destruction of their habitat, and we're seeing that that their numbers go down. But on a whole, the Rhea's population is doing really well.
Changing course a little bit and going back to the Galapagos tortoises. You talked a little bit about their lifespan, but do we know how old our particular tortoises are?
We do. I don't off the top of my head because I have so many ages and numbers rattling around in my brain of all these animals. I do know that Ferdinand is up there. He's not quite as old as Herbie, our male Aldabra tortoise. Herbie is sitting at around 75 years old. I do know that one. So he is our oldest resident here at the zoo. But I believe that Ferdinand and Isabella are in their 50s. So they're up there in age, but again, for a Galapagos tortoise or even an Aldabra tortoise, that's still fairly young for how old those animals can get. And Ferdinand, our male, is not quite as big as Herbie. Herbie is sitting around 500 pounds. Ferdinand is sitting around 350 pounds. So he's not quite as big. So he may still have some growing to do. And you can see our Cappy and our Rhea hanging out here. They're both trying to soak up some sun in this early morning. It's a little cool over here in South America. It's always cooler over here because we've got so many great trees that shade the area. But in the wintertime, it definitely gets a little bit chillier. So the animals tend to hit that sun, and the sun will hit this habitat first over here because it is our furthest west habitat in the South American loop. So you can definitely see these guys are hanging out, trying to soak up the sun. Got a great look at our capybara here, Siren. She's fairly new to our zoo. She just came in not too long ago, but she's been doing great. And we're probably going to start intros. We've already done a little bit of intros with her and Hendrix. And I had overheard our keepers talking that after our talk today, they're going to try and do some more intros with them. So hopefully we'll get our cappies together in the same habitat very soon. But yeah, they all like just hanging out together here.
Jed, we've talked a lot about enrichment with all of these Wild Wednesdays. What kind of enrichment do our Rheas receive?
Yeah, that's a great question. And enrichment tends to be specific for the species. And, Rhea, we talk about intelligence on some level. And, it's one that we don't want to say that the Rhea are not as intelligent as other animals, because every animal has their own intelligence that they use for survival. They've adapted so well to be able to conquer their space, their habitat where they live. But the Rhea we're not going to give very challenging enrichment to. So we wouldn't give them very challenging puzzles to try to solve. to get their food out of. But a lot of times with these guys, it's just kind of hanging their food up in different areas so that we ask them to move around their habitat and use that beak to be able to, and I'm sure, see if I can get a better shot here of these guys. Because Mara, what she does is she hangs the lettuce up in our chain link fence here, and they come over and they will just chew this off. We will give them some small, they're called boomer balls, and there's some holes that are drilled out in there, and we can put some insects and some food inside there, and they will roll that ball around to get that food out. So, you know, they definitely can solve some puzzles, but we don't want to give them too complicated of puzzles because they're just not going to interact with that. So a lot of their enrichment is either hanging their food up on fences. So you can see some lettuce that's stuck in the fence right here for them to be able to just kind of chew that out of there. A little bit of a challenge. And then one of the other big enrichment items that we have in here, of course, is the mixed species. So the different animals that are in here, each animal has to work with each other. They have to get around each other. They have to interact with each other. And that's always exciting for them. So the mixed species that we have in here, they definitely all will, again, interact and enjoy each other's company. So that's a great enrichment item that our Rheas have. All right, do we have any other questions out there, Emily?
Nope, that looks like it covered everything. So with that, do you have any parting words for us today about Rheas, Jed?
Again, thank everybody for hanging out with us this morning. We are trying to keep our member virtual chats a little bit shorter these days, just so I'm not keeping you guys to a full hour. So I just want to thank you guys for spending your morning with us here over in South America with our amazing Greater Common Rhea flora and fauna. Again, sometimes called our underdogs here at the zoo. Make sure when you come to the zoo, you take a stop by here and just hang out for a little bit. It's a beautiful area, and there's always a lot of activity going on. They're typically up and moving around. It's a really fascinating bird, and now you guys have some great info that you can use as you're watching and looking at the birds to be able to hopefully absorb some of that and remember some of the history of these guys and how absolutely amazing they are. So with that, I just want to say thank you to all of you guys for supporting us here at Reid Park Zoo, and stay tuned for some more amazing Wednesday member virtual chats. I'm hoping to do a training the next Wednesday. So Emily will get that information out to you guys so you guys can join us. Potentially we will be doing some elephant training. So that will be really exciting to see up close how we actually train. We've talked about it so much, but how we actually train and the reasons for why we train. So with that, from all of us here at Reid Park Zoo, we say goodbye, stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.